Hey guys, welcome back to Alex Goes Coconuts. So today I'm going to show you how to make a really delicious, easy carrot cake. I've always been a fan of carrot cake and I've been eating it since I'm little, and I've had some really great carrot cakes and I've also had some really awful ones that were dry and gritty. This cake is not like that at all. It's super light and fluffy and it just melts in your mouth. What's great about this recipe too is that it can easily be made into a vegan recipe. And I'll show you how to do that a little bit later in the video. Okay, so the first step to making the cake is to preheat your oven to 350 degrees. The next step is to grease and flour my cake pans to make sure that my cake doesn't stick. Now, I'm using 9-inch cake pans here, and I went ahead and put a knob of softened butter in one of the cake pans, and I'll just use a Scott towel here to spread it around the cake pan and make sure that it's completely greased. There you go, that's one cake pan. Now we'll do the other. Then I'm going to grab some flour here and just sprinkle some of the flour into the cake pan. Tap the flour all around. Make sure that it's covered. Okay, so now both my pans are greased and floured, so I'm going to set these aside and go ahead and make that cake. Now when I'm baking cakes, I like to divide all the dry ingredients from the wet ingredients. So in a bowl, we're just going to come and add 2 cups of all-purpose flour. Now I'm using cake flour for this recipe. Cake flour is just regular flour that's just more finely milled, so it'll give you better results when you're baking a cake. So let's go ahead and add 2 cups of flour. Now I like to use unbleached flour here, but any flour is fine. Perfect. The next thing we'll add is 2 teaspoons of baking soda. The next thing I'm going to add is 2 teaspoons of baking powder. Next we're going to add 2 teaspoons of ground cinnamon. Now the cinnamon will add a really nice flavor to the cake. Cinnamon and carrots go really well together. So 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. There. And I'm also going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. Nutmeg too is a really nice spice. It gives a really great flavor to the cake. And finally we're going to add 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Like I said in my past videos, salt in desserts is really important. It'll counterbalance the sweetness of the cake. Now I'm going to go ahead and whisk my dry ingredients. It's the equivalent to sifting. If you want to sift your flour, go right ahead. You can do that too, but whisking it is just a faster way of doing it without having to pull out the sifter. So there you go. Now my flour and my dry ingredients are all sifted. Okay, so to make this cake, I'm actually going to use my stand mixer here with the paddle attachment. Now, if you don't have a stand mixer, don't worry, you can go ahead and just mix the wet ingredients and then add them to the dry ingredients and mix it by hand. It'll give you the same results. So the first ingredient to go into my stand mixer is sugar. So we'll need 1 cup of white granulated sugar. And I'll also add 1/2 cup of brown sugar. So you want 1/2 cup of packed brown sugar. So there you go. We're also going to add 1.5 cups of vegetable oil. So you can go ahead and use coconut oil if you want, but coconut oil will give you a little bit of a denser cake. Now we're going to turn the mixer on low to mix the sugar and the oil. And we're going to go ahead and add 4 large eggs. Now I'm just doing it like this. I'm breaking the eggs and putting them into my cup here so that in case some shells break, they do not get into my cake batter. Now, instead of the 4 eggs, if you want to make this cake vegan, just substitute the 4 eggs for 1 cup of applesauce or you can use egg replacer. Egg replacer works pretty much for any recipe. Now let's mix this on high until the eggs become really a pale yellow and the sugar melts into those eggs. Okay, so now that my egg mixture is pale in color and light and fluffy, I'm gonna go ahead and add 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. So the key to making this cake really moist is to add a can of crushed pineapple. I'm gonna go ahead and drain the can of pineapple and just add it to my wet mixture. Okay, so now that I drained my pineapple, I'm just gonna add it. Turn it back on. Now it's time to add the carrots. You're gonna need 3 cups of grated carrots. I went ahead and peeled and grated my carrots ahead of time. So I'll just put the mixer on low now and add the grated carrots slowly. Now we're gonna add the dry ingredients to the wet ingredients. Now when you're making cake, the key is to not over mix the batter once you add the dry ingredients. So let's go ahead and put this on low, and we're just gonna scoop the dry ingredients slowly into the batter to make sure that it's well incorporated. Perfect, I'm just gonna lift the paddle here and just scrape the bottom to make sure that there's no flour stuck at the bottom. Do one last mix, and it's done. Now at this stage, you can add half a cup of walnuts if you really like nuts in your cake. I won't do that because my oldest is allergic to nuts, so I'll omit the walnuts, but you can totally go ahead and add walnuts if you really like walnuts in your carrot cake. Okay, so now it's time to pour our batter into our pans. My batter already looks like liquid carrot cake, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna add this to the pans. Now I'm gonna just pour equal amounts into each pan. Now I'm just gonna tap it lightly like this on the counter to make sure I get rid of any air bubbles that might be in the cake. So this is gonna go into the oven for 35 minutes. Now really important, you don't wanna over bake the cake because it will become dry. So just start checking it around the 25-minute mark. You can insert a toothpick and make sure it comes out clean. Okay, so let's go put these in the oven. Okay guys, so these just came out of the oven. They smell wonderful. I know they're ready because I checked them with a toothpick, and when I push on them, the cake springs back on itself. Okay, so now these have been cooling for 15 minutes, and I'm just gonna run a knife around them and flip them over so that they cool completely on the rack, the cooling rack. And let's see if the other one comes out. Same thing, just run a knife along the edge just to make sure it doesn't stick. Oh yeah, that came right out. So now I'm just gonna let these cool completely before I ice them. Now, if you don't wanna ice it the same day, you can even let these cool completely, wrap them in Saran wrap and put them in the fridge overnight, and the next day ice them. So you have 2 options. Okay guys, so while my cake is cooling, I'm gonna go ahead and make a cream cheese icing. So for the cream cheese icing, I'm gonna use 8 ounces of cream cheese that I let soften at room temperature. Now, if you want to make a vegan cream cheese icing, there's a really great company out there called Daya. They make a vegan cream cheese, so you can use that instead of this. So right now, I'll just add my stick of cream cheese into my mixer here. Next, we're gonna add 1 stick of butter. That's 8 tablespoons of softened butter. So I just let this sit out at room temperature also, so it's nice and softened. There you go. That's the next thing to go into my mixer here. Now, if you're making a vegan cream cheese icing, just replace the butter with non-dairy butter, such as Earth Balance, or you can even use margarine. So we're gonna turn the mixer on high and make sure the butter and cream cheese incorporate really, really well. Now that I incorporated my cream cheese and my butter really well, I'm gonna go ahead and add 1 cup of confectioner sugar. Now, just to make sure that my cream cheese icing is lump-free, I like to sift the confectioner sugar. That way I'm sure that it's all nice and smooth. So we'll add 1 cup of confectioner sugar that we're just gonna sift into the bowl here as such. And now I'm guaranteed a lump-free icing. So we'll close this and put this on low until it's all well incorporated. Perfect. And now I'm just going to use my spatula to scrape down the edges of the bowl, make sure there's no confectioner sugar stuck at the bottom or on the sides of my bowl. And the last thing I like to add to my cream cheese icing is half a teaspoon of vanilla. You don't want to add too much vanilla because it'll actually change the color of your cream cheese icing. Okay, so as you can see, my cream cheese icing is done. Now I'm going to take a little bit of the cream cheese and I'm going to prepare 2 bowls with some coloring so that we can make some little carrots to decorate the top of the carrot cake. I actually took a couple of tablespoons of the mixture here and I'm going to go ahead and add some food coloring in it to make some little orange carrots and some green leaves. So for the green, I'm just gonna add a couple of drops of green food coloring and mix it with the spoon here until I have the desired color I want. As you can see, I have a nice green color here for my leaves. And we'll do the same thing for the orange. So a couple of drops of red with a couple of drops of yellow. Now, instead of taking out my piping bag for these, what I like to do is I'll just put these in a little Ziploc. So I'm just gonna grab my green icing and I go and put right here on the corner. So I'll just push it down towards the corner like this. And when I'm ready, I'll just cut a little incision here and do the same thing for the orange. Okay guys, so my cake has cooled completely. It's been cooling for about an hour now and it's completely cold to the touch. So I know that they're ready to ice. I'm just gonna use one of these little turning tables to decorate my cake, but if you don't have one of these, you can take the platter that you're gonna present the cake on and just put it directly on that. So I just flipped the cake onto this little cake platter here. I'll put it onto my turntable. Now there's a couple of ways you can decorate your carrot cake. You can put icing all on the inside and all over the cake, but I kind of like my carrot cakes looking a little rustic, so I like to leave the edge of the cake showing. So I'll only put frosting in the middle of the cake and on the top of the cake. So how I like to frost, I'll put some of the frosting on my bottom layer and just spread it evenly. So now the middle layer is done and I'm gonna come and do the top layer. The cake is actually baked like this. I'm gonna use the bottom here as my top because it'll give me a nice flat surface. So here you go, just make sure that that's nice and straight. And then I'll come and add the rest of the frosting to the top of the cake. So I'm just gonna scoop out all my frosting here on the top of my cake. So now that I've scooped all my frosting on the top of the cake here, I'm just gonna come with my cake spatula and push it out to the edge. And then once you get a nice even layer of frosting, I like to come and make some nice little swirls in the cake so it looks nice and rustic, like something that somebody made at home. There you go. And remember those little baggies of colored icing? Now we're just gonna come and cut the tip and decorate the top of the cake. So I'm just gonna use the green icing here and put 2 carrots on each slice here that I've divided. Now I'm gonna come and use the orange icing and just do little zigzags for my carrots. Even if it's not perfect, really doesn't matter. This is a homemade cake. Whoever you're making this for is really gonna appreciate the fact that you even took time to decorate it. Okay guys, now my cake is decorated and it's really cute. Now I'm just gonna transfer this to a beautiful platter here. And there you go. My cake is ready to be served to my guests. Now this cake is the kind of cake that actually gets better with time, so you can totally make this the night before and refrigerate it and serve it to your guests the next day. Okay guys, so that's my video. I hope you liked it. Let me know in the comments below if you try out my cake. Let me know if you like it. And don't forget to subscribe and click the little bell for notifications. Thanks for watching. Bye.